everybody. It's Bob. Welcome back to Modern Life for the 70's Mind. How's it going? Today we're going to be doing something a little different. I've worn this shirt in the past, and some people have said, "Hey, Bob, thanks for the memories. I love that show." Other people have said it's Midnight Special. So I thought what I would do is take one video and just kind of dig a little deeper into the show and to kind of show you guys what an impact this simple little TV show had basically on musical history. So we're going to go back. Let's do the setup. It's like early 70's, I would say. And back then, TV was completely different as it was then. Literally at 10 o'clock, at least 10 o'clock Chicago time, after the news, they'd play the national anthem, and then the screen would just cut, and all you had was static. Then early in the morning, I don't remember if it was 5 or 6 o'clock, the national anthem would play, and then the broadcasting would start. So that whole night time, there was nothing except static. You would never see that nowadays. Now you just get a lot of lousy TV shows at night. um, so NBC had a time slot right after the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. I'm sure most of you guys have heard of him on Fridays. And they really didn't know what to do with that time slot. And there was a producer by the name of Bert Sugarman who saw an opportunity there. He noticed that younger audiences were staying up later and that musicians really, or music, I guess you should say music, really didn't have a place on TV once the prime spots ended. So he pitched the idea to NBC to have a late night music show with, this is the important part, with live performances. No lip syncing, no pre recorded fluff like you see nowadays. Actual artists playing live on stage, and what was really unique, on network television. That was a big deal back then because nobody was doing that. Back then, I guess as now, live music was expensive. It was very unpredictable and kind of risky for network TV, especially back then because there were a lot of restrictions on what could be broadcast on TV. But Sugarman believed in this project enough to actually fund the project himself. Um, he obviously had a lot of faith, and his first episode aired in August of 1972 as literally just a one-time special. It featured John Denver, I think Cass Elliot, Harry Chapman, and even the band War. I don't know if you've heard of War. They were a really good band. Bottom line, after viewing this, the people loved it. And the response was so strong that NBC picked this show up as a weekly series starting in February of 1973. And that's how the Midnight Special was born. From a throwaway time slot to one of the most unique and influential music shows on TV. Okay, let's turn to what I believe made this show so different. And honestly, I think it was brilliant. First off, the show had range. And what I mean by that is we saw rock, soul, we saw funk, we saw disco. You never really knew what you were going to see when you tuned in to the Midnight Special on Friday nights. And fortunately and brilliantly, it wasn't just about the big stars. We saw people before they even became popular and anyone really knew who they were. For example, you would see Fleetwood Mac right as Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham joined because they were on their own with the Buckingham Nicks group. And Fleetwood Mac had been around for quite a while. And then they joined a band, and that was world changing for them. We saw Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers before they hit it big. Heart, even when Magic Man was still just climbing up the charts, people hadn't heard of them before. Even Blondie, people didn't know who Debbie Harry was, and Kiss, all major bands that people just weren't exposed to at the time. But at the same time, the show was pulling in a lot of major names. I'm talking Aretha Franklin, the Bee Gees, Linda Ronstadt, Al Green, David Bowie, the Doobie Brothers. All these artists were really already massive on the music scene at the time. So every episode felt like this crazy wild mix, these music icons on the same stage as the next big thing, if you would want to call it that. And that was part of the magic. It just didn't entertain. It was kind of like discovery. We were learning new things. And you might tune into a band that you knew you just loved, and you might have walked away from that episode leaving with a new favorite band. And that was kind of, I think, the real magic of it. And the people watching, that was me. We weren't ready to call it a day after the 10 o'clock news. It was for the night owls, the music lovers, especially the college crowd, the ones who wanted something fresh and maybe a little bit off the radar. And it worked because the show didn't just try to impress you with gimmicks. It gave you music. It gave you a space to breathe. So let's talk about who was kind of guiding the show every week. Unlike current TV shows, and I think unlike all current TV shows, there wasn't a single host running the whole thing. Instead, they use this rotating guest host scenario where sometimes you would see musicians, sometimes you would see actors, or some just iconic type people. For example, some of the other hosts were like George Burns, I know was on there one time, Lily Tomlin, even Chevy Chase, I believe one time hosted Midnight Special. But if you look at the show in its entirety, the person who really became the face, if you will, of the show was Wolfman Jack. If you've never heard of him, look him up because that guy's just out of this world. He was this wild, gravel voiced radio DJ with this crazy energy level. While he wasn't a singer in a band or anything like that, he had deep ties into the music scene. In fact, a lot of the artists who came to the Midnight Special show had already played on his radio shows. So when he introduced a band, it wasn't just this random introduction. It was a guy who literally, in a lot of aspects, helped launch these bands in the first place. And then you had artists like Helen Reddy. She hosted the pilot episode and came back often. In fact, I think she was a guest on the show more than anybody else. She got the artists, I guess, she introduced. And I mean, I say that because she was one of them. Same thing with Gladys Knight. She didn't just host, she performed, and her episodes often featured fellow R&B guests that that she was connected to, like the OJs, and previously I think I mentioned Al Green. Even David Bowie once hosted, and his episode had this glam rock feel to it. How would it not? Everything about it felt like it was his world. And that was the point, kind of. They let the host bring their own vibe to the show and made each episode feel a little different, maybe even more personal than you would if you were just watching this overly produced show. It's like you were stepping into the music scene through through their eyes. Okay, let's take a second and talk about the performers because, after all, that is ultimately why we tuned into the show. Because every midnight special wasn't just about who performed, it was about the variety of performers. And I'm going to probably throw out a lot of names here because I want to kind of give you guys an idea of the like diversity of music that was being played. The show literally gave us something different like every week that we tuned in on Friday nights. One episode might lean into soul and rhythm and blues, and then the next weekend it could be rock, and then the next weekend it'd be folk or funk or disco. You'd see someone like Al Green and Aretha Franklin, and they after they played, the very next act might be ELO or Gordon Lightfoot. You just never knew. That wide range of genres combined with performances from different generations, what a mix. I gave the show really, I think, a unique and powerful energy to it. You had Motown legends like the Spinners. Um, I mentioned Gladys Knight already. You had 70 rock stars like Hart, Boston, the Doobie Brothers, who I think I already mentioned, and Dolly Parton and Willie Nelson bringing country fans in too. They even brought in bands that would probably lean more experimental or theatrical, like Genesis, T Rex, and Frank Zappa is another perfect example. Bottom line, I mean, listen to what I just mentioned here. It was crazy. Bottom line, it really covered the entire musical map. And like I mentioned, the producers just didn't focus on stars. They were great at balancing these newcomers that I talked about earlier with the established legends. Some even made several appearances, like Helen Reddy. I mentioned her as well. She not only hosted the pilot, she also appeared on the show more than any other musical guest on the show. Other frequent guests, I guess, included like the Bee Gees, Linda Ronstadt, Earth, Wind, and Fire, all of whom helped define the sound of the 70s in their own way. So if you were watching the Midnight Special, it wasn't just about one style or one musical scene. It was about a mix, a celebration of everything music. And that, I think, is one of the things that really kept the people coming back every week on Friday nights. You never really knew who was going to be on, but you knew it was going to be good every week. Okay, so that was a lot. I just threw a lot of artists out at you, and I did that intentionally because I really wanted to stress what a great mix of generations, of genres, everything that made this so special. But looking at it at a higher level, I think the Midnight Special gave us some real moments in music history with some of these incredible artists and a couple of their performances that I think that just really stuck out. Take David Bowie, for example. He performed Rebel Rebel in 1974. He was in full glam, full confidence, and even hosted the show. And I'm telling you, for a lot of Americans, that was the first real glimpse of what David Bowie was all about. And I have no doubt in my mind that a lot of these people were sitting back in their chairs saying, "What the heck did we just watch?" Especially for that time period. Then there was Prince, I believe, in 1980. He wasn't just like a normal household name at that point. He was still pretty new and unknown to the viewers. He came out and played "Why You Want to Treat Me So Bad," and just owned the stage. You could just tell after watching that performance that this guy's going to be huge, and ultimately he definitely did. Fleetwood Mac's Rhiannon performance was just pure magic. Stevie Nicks looked like, and I saw them in concert 3 or 4 times, and I got the same feeling seeing them live. But she looked like she was channeling something otherworldly, the way she was on the stage, and I think that just truly defined her as a front woman that made this song, I think, just truly unforgettable. Kiss saw them live too. They brought the fire with rock and roll all night. I mean, literally brought the fire. There was makeup, there was explosions, there were raw vocals. It was loud, it was somewhat chaotic, and it felt completely alive. And fortunately, they named their album Alive, their live cut. So I mean, it all just came together perfectly. The Bee Gees, they had a really kind of a turning point performance singing Nights of Broadway, which showed a completely different type of energy for them. And that was right before they kind of exploded into disco superstardom. And you could see the transitioning happening right in real time. And then there was probably my one of my favorites is Linda Ronstadt. Her performance of You're No Good in 1975, all I can say is wow. It was just one of those moments that was so special that the crowd just went quiet because it was just that good. They didn't want to miss a single note or anything that she was singing to them. And it's another one. Earth, Wind, and Fire brought the funk with Shining Star. The band was so tight live; it felt like every note was just like perfectly placed, and it was so incredibly full of soul. Really, just a groundbreaking performance. So these are just a few, and trust me, there were many, many more. But what made these moments special is that they were live, and we didn't see that back then. There were no redos, there were no editing. It was just raw talent on stage. And honestly, I think people today still crave that same type of performance. All good things come to an end. MTV launched in 1981, and suddenly it was all about music videos. I remember scrambling to try to get MTV so I could watch the music videos. They were highly produced and really tightly edited, at least for the time. Looking back, they were horrible. But back at the time, they were tightly edited. And that was truly the opposite of what the Midnight Special was about. And while that was great for a new generation of music fans, it pretty much marked the end of live music on regular, like network TV. At the same time, this was all going on. The cost of producing the show for NBC was going up. Live performances every week weren't cheap, and NBC was starting to shift their priorities. So after nearly a decade on the air, I hate to say it, the show ended in May of 1981. I remember that. It was dramatic. Wolfman Jack hosted that final show. I mean, who else could it have been? Because he was kind of the face. And the last musical performance was Frankie Valli and the Four singing Seasons singing December 63, Oh What a Night. Looking back and listening to the lyrics of that song, it just feels the perfect way to say goodbye. It was nostalgic, it was joyful, and just really like kind of full of heart. But even though the show ended, the legacy clearly didn't. Look at me, I'm still wearing a t shirt from them. The Midnight Special, I think, gave us something that most music shows nowadays don't even attempt. It gave us real live performances from real artists in a format that I think treated the music with the utmost respect. It brought rising stars and living legends onto the same stage. You don't see that often anymore. It trusted the audience to care about the music, not just the hype. And there's a lot of hype these days in music. And even now, decades later, people of all ages are still watching these midnight special performances. Thank God for channels like YouTube where we can go back and actually view some of these and enjoy them for a second time. And it's not just because they were historic, but because they were good. In a world filled with so many filters, edits, lip syncing, auto tune, all that, the Midnight Special reminded us what it's like to see an artist just step on stage and go for it. It was raw, it was real, and for a lot of us, it was just unforgettable. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I really enjoyed kind of going back and kind of digging a little deeper into the Midnight Special. If you like this, please give me a thumbs up, and if you would consider clicking that notification bell, that way you'll be notified anytime I release new content. All right, guys, listen. Only life is priceless. Please make each and every day count. God bless all of you. Peace out. Talk to you next time. Thanks for watching this. I appreciate it. Bye bye.